And I had something on my mind, and I wanted to talk about it. And, yesterday was the opening of the MLB season, opening day, which was, for a lot of us, was a big day, or it used to be. But, by losing the A's in Oakland, a lot of us have kind of a bad taste in our mouth. And given the things that are happening right now in not just baseball or in Oakland, but in sports in general, and really got me thinking. I'm like, the way that professional sports is run, I have to think there's a point where it might be doomed. So with MLB, once the A's get into Vegas and the the situation with the Rays gets hammered out, it looks like they got a location they're looking at over in Tampa by the college that they have there. I forget the name of the college, but they have a plan, and hopefully the new owner can make it happen. Good for them. So once that gets all hammered out, they're talking about expansion. National Hockey League is talking about expansion. The NBA has just decided to officially explore expansion in Las Vegas and Seattle. And then I got to thinking, what's it going to cost somebody to get a team, a brand new team, not a relocated team, but a brand new team? And the numbers are frankly insane. So relocation numbers just a few years ago, well, the A's got a free ride. They got no relocation fee, which is honestly the dumbest shit I've ever heard, but that's a whole other thing. But, when the Raiders went to Las Vegas, it was a couple $100 million. Same with the Rams to LA, and also the Chargers to LA. Several $100 million, and that was roughly 10 years ago. Now, NFL isn't talking expansion, at least not at the level that the other leagues are, but it made me wonder, if they do expand, what's the cost there? So, with the NHL talking about expansion, their expansion cost is estimated about $2 billion. $2 billion. Maybe as low as 100 or as low as $1 billion. But it's estimated to be around $2 billion to start an expansion team. And that doesn't include anything. That's just to get a team. So you're going to look at an arena. If you're going to a place that already has something set up, hey, great for you. You save a few bucks. Maybe go into a long-term lease, and maybe a little sweetheart deal that gets money in your pocket. But the reality is, places that don't have an NHL team probably already don't have an NHL arena ready to go. And will likely have to build something from scratch. And the arena costs these days are about $1 billion. And it's rising. Costs are rising. And then, not to mention the cost of all the marketing and research and everything there, trying to get deals, which a lot of them aren't as friendly anymore. A lot of these leagues are struggling with finding a place to be, a home. Some do it better than others, but fans are pissed. Why? We'll pay for a league deal, so we'll get the MLB Network or the NFL Red Zone or one of these packages, and then we don't even get to see our games because the Monday Night Football is going to be on this channel or this app, and this game is going to be on that app, and only this one's only going to be on Prime, and it's like, And if you want to watch your team, you get blacked out. She's like, well, what the hell did I just drop all this money for? I can't even watch the game. I got to get another app, maybe not even be able to watch that, So you got a lot of people pissed off about these deals. And then, so you're kind of locked into stuff that's already whatever is in the league's contracts. The local deals are kind of falling apart. And you're usually having to get in with big companies like NBC Universal, Comcast, or whatever it is, Cox Cable, or whoever it is that's in your local territory. And then, so an expansion team, let's say it's $2 billion. Let's say it's another $1 billion to get an arena. So you're $3 billion. By the way, this is NHL, which is the 4th largest professional sports league in the United States. So now we go to the next level. I caught a story about the NBA expansion is looking at, and it's upwards of $10 billion. $10 billion just to get the team. And then you're going to do the similar things. $1 billion or so for a new arena. And then arenas just aren't arenas anymore. Stadiums just aren't stadiums anymore. Now you're looking at all the ancillary development around it. Hotels and shopping and condos and retail and everything else, that you're just making these big entertainment villages in addition to your arena. So that, who knows how much that is? Depends on how big your project's going to be. So the NBA is the 2nd largest in the country. Yeah, but technically Chicago isn't losing the Bears. I mean, that's a whole other thing. And I'm getting to this other point eventually. I'm going a long way around it. But yeah, so NBA, you're looking at about a $10 billion investment right off the top. But the thing is, who's got $10 billion? Who's got it? It's like, so it's not one guy. It's probably going to be 3 or 4 or 5 or 20 guys who are going to have to pull their money together to get one team. And then that's this year's price. In 10, 15 years, let's say you sell the team. Now how much is that? You're going to be looking at, what, $20 billion to the guy you're going to sell it to if you don't leave it to your kids? Yeah, well, Musk, he's not in the game yet. I mean, but the reality is, I think the sports market's going to change probably within our lifetime, at least the professional sports market that we know. Because that's just the buy-in. The Raiders just, Mark Davis just, laid out his succession plan, and that he's going to sell it to, if he sells or when he passes, whoever, if he, we're just going to assume that he's not going to have kids. He's getting up there in age, late 60s, early 70s. I've lost track at this point. He doesn't have kids that we know of. I don't see where it would go. So yeah, I guess it would sell off. And, and we're looking at 10, 15 billion dollars. What we don't know what the valuation will be come that time. But these numbers, they go up and up and up. And the average billionaire, which is, probably a 1 or 2 billion, a John Fisher billionaire, somebody with maybe several $100 million, or maybe the low single-digit billions, that might not be a good deal for them. They're going to have to go in with a group. But then you get all this stuff that we're getting, and we're going right back here to Chicago and several other cities. Kansas City's losing their team, sort of. They're Missouri to Kansas, still Kansas City. Chicago's actually just moving over one city, and but that city's in Indiana. It's right on the border. But you're getting all these billionaire guys are going, hey, give us free stuff, or we're out. And the thing is that's going to get old real fast. Eventually, somebody's going to start squashing these big public investments for stadiums because it's getting out of hand. You're getting, in Kansas City's deal, upwards of $3 billion just handed over to them. It doesn't got to get paid back, and then they get to keep all the profits. So it's like the city's like, why are we paying for this? So we can get a couple bucks that might never ever pan out in tax revenue from how many years of somebody actually coming here shopping and watching a game. Not to mention the cost to field a team is also getting way expensive. I mean, we're looking at teams now like the Dodgers with $1 billion payroll. It's like, okay, this is not in a year, but over several years, you're getting $1 billion players. I mean, Ohtani is $700-something million. You're getting these $500 million contracts, $300 million contracts. You get several of those, and suddenly, you're looking for deals. And so then now we're getting naming rights deals and corporate investors and all this stuff. And I'm like, if you keep moving from city to city, cities are going to get mad. People are going to get mad. And I think what we might end up with is something more of a Japanese or Korean idea, which is corporate teams. So, you got a lot of the teams over there who they're the Yokohama Giants. I don't know who owns what. I don't know the teams. I'm lost. But you have big corporations. You have the Samsung team, and you have the Sony team, and you have the Hitachi team. These are real things. It's like the only way you're going to be able to do that is with the corporate structure. It's no more the Oakland A's or the San Francisco Giants or the New York Yankees. It's going to be the Chase Bank Yankees or, yuck. It sucks. But at this point, you're one step away from that. I mean, you've got big, huge billionaires who are selling everything they can to corporate sponsors. These corporate sponsors are wanting to put their name on the jerseys, on the hats now. They're putting them on everything. They're putting it on the stadium, putting it on the field, they're putting it on the sky and the buildings around the place. So it's getting to the point where that's what it is. It's all going to start looking like NASCAR pretty soon, where it's just everything is an ad, At least NASCAR, a lot of those guys are also corporate owned. But it's going to be, I think, to a point where it just gets too expensive to have teams in the current situation. And then you have to have corporate play. And I think then we get rid of all the names of the cities and the states, and you just like whoever you like. It's like, well, I was an Oakland A's fan because I was born in Oakland. I'm an East Bay guy. I could very easily be a fan of the Giants and the 49ers. That's just not me. It's not in me. It's not what I was raised to. And there's just a part of me that says, no, that's not what it is. That I can't do it. I just can't. But at the same time, how many transplants are living here? How many people are from Boston and Chicago and New York and everywhere else basically than here? They're from everywhere, and they have their own allegiances, and because it's not their hometown, it makes it like it makes it prohibitive for you to like something. It's like, what if your whole family's from Boston, and now they're going, hey, we're a Boston team, we're a family, we everything Boston. We're Patriots fans, we're Celtics fans, we're everything, and so we can't root for the Sox. Well, what if there was no more Boston team? It's like, and it's just the whoever's. I don't know. you name it. The Wells Fargo Celtics. What if it's the the Goodyear Tire Patriots? It's like you're not like locked out anymore. As if you live somewhere else in the country. That doesn't really help people or hurt people this day and age. A lot of people are fans of teams that win. Sorry, I'm cutting my own head off here in the picture. My arm's getting tired. You after a team has a good run, they have their dynasty set up. You see a lot of fans. It happened with the 49ers in the 80s and 90s. And then from the 2000s on, you're going to have a lot of Patriots fans. And right now you're seeing a lot of new Kansas City fans. And it's whoever's that group. It's whoever's that winning team. People want to follow winners. They want to be part of a winning culture and with an organization that does things like take care of their fans, or they take care of they put out that win a lot or compete a lot or have like these top players. That's what we all want. We don't want to be a bunch of bottom feeders, and that's what sucked for the A's. 20-something years of just bottom feeder garbage. You couldn't buy a shirt with the guy's name on the back because he'd be gone next season. They shot themselves in the foot with that one. What changes in Las Vegas? I don't honestly care anymore. It's if they get their shit together and run the team better, good for them. I'm still not coming. But it is what it is. But yeah, so the point was, is American sports, the way that we have ownership groups and such, is it doomed? Is corporate teams the next thing in line? Or the other side of this, do these leagues die? Because now we have another finger in the pie, and that's Las Vegas. And it's the gambling side. Because now you're getting a lot of blowback about, our leagues scripting games. After all, it's not really, the NFL is not really a sports league. It's an entertainment brand. And that's an interesting question. People are saying, hey, there's no proof, but there is a lot of circumstantial evidence that's out there, and people are looking for it. So, was that an upset victory? Was this guy throwing a game? Is this the way it was supposed to happen? And you don't know. And that's kind of pissing people off. Not to mention changes in the rules and, you can't do this anymore and you can't touch that guy anymore and they keep changing the rules and it's taking away the integrity of the game. And those sorts of arguments are making for a bad product. And people get mad. It's like, this is flag football. Holy shit, flag football. Instead of the NFL, instead of taking that as an insult, they said, hey, let's make our Pro Bowl a flag football game. Really? Is that what we're doing? Now it's flag football. It's like, you can't win. It's like a lot of these places are just doing everything they can to piss off fans. And it's like, why? It's like you're getting mad at the fans for not wanting to change the game that you want to change to get more fans. And it's like, wow, that's really a backward of idea. And really in the long and short of it, or in the long run, numbers aren't down for the NFL. Numbers aren't down for the NBA. Numbers are getting better for MLB now, which might not have a season next season if they can't figure out their whole collective bargaining agreement situation. There's a lot of interesting things happening, but at the end of the day, you're like, well, do these leagues last? Either in their current iteration or in at all? Because again, if you have if you take away that little bit of consistency, that little bit of cities and teams are losing their sports culture. Yeah, and the thing is a lot of it is the sports themselves. A lot of the teams are killing their own culture. And this is going to be another complaint with the athletics. Is so they go to Sacramento. There's no more drums. They don't want any more signs, especially if there's a possibility one is going to say something not so nice about the current owner. There's lots of little things that they do. And then let's look at the Raiders, for instance. I mean, people talk about the culture of the Coliseum. The 49ers at Candlestick Park, and you go and you get games now, and you're like, this is milquetoast. This is boring. It's like, we used to do this, and we don't have that anymore, and this used to be fun, and we're not allowed to do this. Every stadium's become the fun police. A fucking can of beer costs you $26, a taco, $15, and, you're getting nickeled and dimed, and you haven't even gotten to your seat yet, There's a lot of stuff that's just happening, and it's pissing off fans. And then I see something else. I see what's in the state of youth sports. Little League's dying, It's you got kids who are 8 and 9 years old now going to play travel baseball, which is Little League's, $100, $200 to play for 3 or 4 months. Travel ball is like $1,000 to $2,000 to play for 2 or 3 months. Little League's playing in your little hometown. You go down to the 1 or 2 parks that you have, and you play your friends, and they're on that other team. And travel ball, you've got you got 15 guys maybe, and you're going out to, Manteca all weekend to play in 115 degrees on a turf field that's falling apart. Meanwhile, you just paid $2,000 for your kid to play, had to buy him a $500 bat and a $400 glove, and they're still charging you to walk in the door to watch your kid play. Is you're like, what the fuck? Like, really? Everything is this super crazy money grab. Everything is a money grab. These kids, they're 7 and 8 years old sometimes. It's like, oh, he's like, my kid's on the 7U elite team. And it's like, your kid can't tie his shoe. Why is he playing on that? He needs to be playing at the local league. I see it as a jump off point, because usually a little league stops at 12. There's some other leagues like Cal Ripken League and stuff, they go up to like 16. But at least here in California, there aren't a lot of sports in the middle school age group. So that 12 to 15 area is this dead space, with the exception of like volleyball, maybe track, and basketball. There is no football, there's no baseball, there's no softball, and that's all. That's that. Those rec leagues don't have that, and then that's what the travel ball is filling that gap, and that's insanely expensive. So anyways, I got off the subject here. New stuff might eventually threaten the old stuff. Banana ball. I don't know if you're familiar with the Savannah Bananas, which is competitive baseball, which is semi-scripted, from what I understand. I've never actually been to a game. But they have fun. They have fun. And this is what's killing me about youth sports is they're not having fun. Everybody's stoic and stone-faced. The only emotions you ever see is anger. You got these kids, man, they get burnt out quick because you got everybody yelling at them. They're not having fun. And they see these guys. They see players in other leagues. They see the Dominican guys and the Cubans and these other guys, especially the Latin teams, and they are having a blast. You hit a home run, you pimp it out, you're doing stuff. It's very demonstrative. There's bat flips and celebrations, and you're like, that's so fun. I want to do that. And then they get yelled at. And then we see it with the NFL, and oh, they had a celebration, so now we're going to penalize the team for celebrating. It's like, no, we want to see that. I mean, here's a whole generation who've been 2 generations, 3 generations now, raised on WWE and fun, and guys acting out and getting big announcements, and walk up music is a thing, and they want to be like those guys. They want the fireworks, they want the big sound and the songs, and they want the crowd chants and everything else that are happening. Even when they're little, they want that. And then you got some big angry guy going, "Hey, you can't, unwritten rules of baseball, and you can't look at a guy and blah blah blah." And it's like, stop it. Nobody wants that. And so now you have a league that's threatening that, and that is the Savannah Bananas and the affiliate teams. There's like the firefighters and the party boys, and there's a few more leagues. And this was a huge ticket to get, tickets that were affordable. You want to go, they want to play at Oracle Park, or what is it now? It's Daikin Park. It used to be Minute Maid or whatever, out in Houston. Anyways, Major League ballparks selling out. And, the ticket levels are like 50, like 20, 30, 50, something like that. From the cheap seats to the most expensive seats. Super affordable for a family to go to a game. And not just a game, but an entertainment event where the fans are welcome to participate. If a fan catches a foul ball, the batter's out. Fan participation is a big deal. The funds, having celebrations and dances and stuff. Not only is it welcomed, it's literally part of the game. There's teams that got like whole setups where there's dance routines with the whole team. Pitchers doing weird stuff. Everybody's got little stuff that they're doing, and the whole point is to be entertaining. And apparently, I've caught a few interviews with the owner of the Bananas, and MLB wants to buy them. And we know why MLB wants to buy them. It's likely to kill them, to shut it down, to make it something bad, or to raise the prices and squeeze every dime they can out of it before they kill it. It's getting a lot of comparison to the Harlem Globetrotters. But I do not believe that the outcomes of the games are fixed. As much as they're having fun, I do believe that it's still competitive games where, even with these crazy, absurd rules, that there are still winners and losers. They're not pre-predicted. And the fun part is I just got an email about this recently. Was they're trying to put together their own youth sports to do, so your kid can go and pimp a home run, and celebrate a strikeout, and the things that they want to do, and have fun with the game that really the game is killing the fun out of. I'll use my own kid as an example. Absolutely loved baseball. From just a few days after being born was his first game, and you would see my kid regularly on TV because he was at the games, and he was up there with the right field guys banging on drums, and at events and everything else, and he was just a cute kid. How could you not put him on TV? And he knew the players, and he was into it, and he had his little outfits and everything, and we had fun with that. And then they say they're gonna leave, and that was really kind of a downside of baseball kind of thing. He'd been dealing with a lot of stuff because he was always one of those kids who did want to have fun. He'd get on base and he'd shake his glass and have fun, and everybody, oh, that's so cool. And then it stopped being cool, and then he's getting yelled at, and hey, you can't do that, you can't show out. And it's like, he was still a good player, and he'd do well, and they would still bag on him. Just a bunch of old grouchy dudes who never amounted to anything in the game themselves. And suddenly they want to take the fun out of it. And I'm like, dude, these kids are 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. They're still trying to have fun. It's like, so why are we, why are we bagging on a bunch of little kids for doing a thing? Professionals, hell, I love seeing professional baseball players. Hey, you guys are getting paid millions of dollars. Go have fun with it at least. It's not so damn serious. But anyways, we're seeing stuff like this. Here in Oakland, A's left. These guys create the ballers. And they got this independent minor league team, and they win. They go into the playoffs their first year. They win the second year. I have my complaints about the ballers, but overall, it's a massively positive experience for a lot of people. And they say, well, it's not going to replace Major League Baseball, but don't be quite so sure. I feel like pro sports days are numbered, and it's going to be their own fault. They're going to keep squeezing our pockets and treating us like we're stupid, and making the games that we want to watch not fun. And part of it is the cost. It's not fun to go out and lose all your money, and then to watch a shitty team that doesn't have players, doesn't compete for anything, doesn't care about you, and we're seeing a lot of that. A lot of that's getting killed in the games that we're watching. Football is going to be dead soon probably too. I mean, you're getting fewer and fewer people playing the game. So how would you ever expand if you can't even keep up with the people? We haven't gotten to the point yet where we haven't gotten to the point where the NFL is threatened yet. There's been the XFL, there's the USFL, and they're not a threat, not yet. But the more that they do silly things like flag football for the Pro Bowl, these last season there was a lot of really close games that were questionably close. This is why the city should just pay. I don't care. I don't think the city should have to pay for the things that billionaires are using. Buy your own shit. And if you do want the cities, that's the stupidest shit ever, because there's no ever, I'm not saying you're stupid, but I'm saying the fact that cities are allowed to let these people use their name and their likeness. I know it's public, so it's whatever. You can call yourself whatever you want. But there's that, and then there's using our taxpayer money to fund the shit that we don't get anything out. Kansas City, again, is a good example of it. They're going to get roughly $3 billion from the state of Kansas to move there. And Kansas isn't getting any of that money back. All the money that does come through gets put away to fix the stadium and build a new one eventually later. The Chiefs will get all the concessions, they'll get all the parking, they'll get all the other event fees, they'll get all the tickets for all that. So here you got the multi-billion dollars worth Chiefs bilking the state of Kansas for billions of dollars, and Kansas gets absolutely jack shit. They get to own the stadium, but that's it. They get to own the stadium. It's all they get to do is stick their name on it. I would rather just pay it, because it's not like the city provides jobs and tourism. Yeah, well, Oakland can't provide housing or decent schools or cops or fire department or homeless services or anything else. Why would we give billions of dollars? These things should be used to generate money for those things. And we've got it ass backwards. Now, I think a good idea would be, if you want to use public money, the public, if the powers that be, the city councils or mayors or whoever who are putting up the money, should now get a cut of whatever money that was loaned out, invested. Either we get to just be owners with you and collect the money, or until you pay that back, we collect that money plus some interest. Not everyone can live in Oakland or the Bay. It's kind of crowded, so if you think activism over your sports, it's not activism, dude. It's basic business. It's basic business. Sports economists are saying all over the place that you can't, that these the millions of dollars and the billions of dollars that we're putting into paying for teams, we don't get it back. Just because we can say our city won, if a team wins, that's one thing. It's not the responsibility of the city to bend over backwards for the sports. It's the opposite. You want to use our name, you want to use everything else, but you want our money. And when I say our, I'm talking about the city, state, county. You want their money for a thing that they don't get anything. They don't get anything out of it. It's all another corporate structure that's getting the money. They're like, well, we'll get the tax revenue from where? Some places are set up better for it than others. If you're going to San Francisco to hang out while you go to Oakland, well, Oakland ain't getting that money. Oakland fucked itself in a lot of ways too, because there was no other development around the Coliseum. Like, if you wanted to get something to eat, yeah, there was a McDonald's and a Jack in the Box and stuff, and a Denny's right there. But aside from that, there wasn't that much. It's not a place where you wanted to hang out after a game. You wanted to get the fuck out. Almost 60 years, they never had anything there. It was built there because it was a great deal at the time, because it was this big industrial area. The land was cheap, but it stayed an industrial area. There was some housing. So Oakland couldn't build. Wait, let me see what these are saying. So Oakland couldn't build a ballpark for the A's and let the Raiders have the Coliseum. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. The A's fucked the Raiders out of the Coliseum and then turned around and fucked themselves out of everything too, and just ended up doing the exact same thing while talking shit about the Raiders the whole time, but ended up just doing the exact same thing. I think the situations are vastly different. Neither guy wants to spend the money to make the money. I don't know if you're going to have the same sort of fandom in Las Vegas versus Oakland, but they don't care. The seats will sell because, if it's like the Raiders, it's just going to be some resellers who end up buying up all the tickets. And a sold ticket's a sold ticket as far as John Fisher's concerned, or Mark Davis is concerned. It's the resale market, and you see the empty seats. Well, that seat's still sold. It's just nobody else bought it later. You don't, but again, you don't do that way. You don't do it that way. To say one should have been picked over, no, Libby made the right choice. You go 8 games or 81 games. That money doesn't always work out. I don't think either one of them was. I think it was all bad. It was all bad. But to say, hey, we should spend the money for you, is also bad. you can't put all of it on her, is the thing. She tried. There's a lot of bullshit. Mark Davis didn't want to do a deal in the first place. You know, you got to be, what do they say? You can't buy something that's not for sale. Well, you can't bargain with somebody who doesn't want to bargain. Mark Davis either wanted a free deal or nothing at all here. Nobody lost the Warriors, and that's where people get a lot of things wrong. Nobody lost anything with the Warriors. Joe Lacob didn't even try to stay. He didn't say, hey, let me get a deal here. He's like, no, I own the team now. I'm going to work on getting some shit over in San Francisco. I'm taking the team away. Never once was he trying to play one against the other. He just, and I have more respect for that than the bullshit that went on with the Raiders and the A's, is he just said, I'm taking my fucking shit and I'm going over there. And then what can you do? You can't force him to stay. They sued him and they won. I'm assuming they got their money. I don't know. Because they did all this renovation work years before, and but they didn't lose the Warriors. And then we didn't necessarily lose the Raiders. The Raiders were just trying to be assholes. Well, you just can't offer a downtown arena. That was something that was floated years previous, and it just didn't go. It didn't happen. I'm curious, are you from Oakland, or are you're an outside guy? Because I think you would need to understand Oakland a little bit more directly than if you live here than if you didn't live here. Because Oakland's you're from Oakland, or do you used to live here and you don't live here anymore? That's another question. Because Oakland from before ain't the same as Oakland now. And you just don't get teams and lose teams. Like, the whole point with the Raiders coming back was they were going to come back and build a new stadium. And Oakland did stuff. Okay, how long have you been gone? That's my question. How long have you not lived in Oakland? Okay, so you're in the Bay. You're adjacent. Okay, so Oakland downtown really isn't a place you can build anything. I mean, something that size, you would need a little bit more space. I mean, you could tear down some shit. I mean, I can tell you a lot of stuff that needs to go. Hell, they could probably, you live on Alcatraz Avenue. Okay, cool. So there's a lot of space, but in downtown, not really. They could have probably made something work, but not 15, 20 years ago when they needed to. Now they could, but then they didn't. Because now there's a little bit more space. Again, there's some stuff that needs to just go. It's just, downtown Oakland has never recovered from the pandemic. There's still a lot of stuff that's boarded up and graffitied over, and it's like they can't save themselves. They try and do things and First Fridays and stuff, and look, the Oakland government, well, they listen to the anti-gentrification crowd. And the thing is I'm going to be honest with you. You need a little bit of gentrification, because that's how the state works. Ever since, what was that, Prop 13 or whatever, the thing with the land values, and after that happened, things just kind of got stagnant because we weren't reassessing property values. People were sitting on, billion-dollar buildings and paying $1,000 taxes, and meanwhile, crying, hey, where's our police and fire departments? Well, you didn't pay for them. You paid for them, 20 years ago, but the price has gone up, and that's a California thing, But the funny thing is why does everybody else figure out deals in Los Angeles and San Francisco and Santa Clara and Sacramento, but Oakland can't fucking get their head out of their asses. Now, some of the politicians I absolutely agree with. And I don't think it's the Libby Shafts of the world. I think it's more of the Carol Fifes of the world. There's too many activists, not enough people who are actually trying to change stuff. Or they're trying to change it for the wrong reasons. So we don't need activism like that. I mean, Oakland shoots itself in the foot because it's trying to keep itself poor. And, a lot of people will disagree with this idea, but who wants to live where there's trash and graffiti and homeless people and crime? You can't park your car. You can't take your kids to the park because there's crime and homelessness and hookers and, needles on the ground, and it's dirty. Nobody wants that. It's like, but if you try to do anything to change it, you're an asshole. You're a racist. You're a xenophobe. You hate women. It's like, what the fuck? Okay, so San Jose is a very different city than Oakland. One, San Jose is wealthy. They've got the money. They've got the money. Again, Oakland's different than everybody else. Everybody else seems to be able to put their shit together, but not Oakland. And the politicians are corrupt. They are. I mean, from the bottom to the top. There's a good guy here and a good guy there, but there's a lot of bad guys. People, we have one person who's talking about, Piedmont's a whole different city. So you can't actually lump them in with Oakland because they are completely a different city. Although they're like an island inside Oakland. So, but there's just a lot of bad faith actors. Yeah, I get it. You get what you pay for. It's like, I'm going to give you a reason why schools suck in California. It's expensive. It's expensive to live here. Everything's expensive. Food's expensive. Power's expensive. Just everything's expensive. If you go to a poor neighborhood school, you have parents who either there's only one parent in the home, or you got two parents, but they're both working multiple jobs. They can't really put the time in with the PTA and do all that stuff. Very little parental involvement. That's a tough part. I'm gonna put my phone down for a minute because my arm's getting tired. So parental involvement is a big deal. And it's not just, bake sales and that sort of stuff, but it's even stuff as simple as doing homework. If you have parents who aren't educated, and I'm not trying to say everybody's dumb, but when you have a lot of people who probably didn't get past algebra or don't know how to read and write English or don't understand basic science or even history, it's going to be really hard to teach a kid why those things are important and why those things, or even help them on a test. It's really tough, so it's the blind leading the blind. And then when I go to nice neighborhoods, so for a long time my son was going to school in Alameda, and where he was at was in the Gold Coast, which is the richest spot in Alameda. How the hell we were there, I don't know, because we ain't them. This is where the mayor lives. She lives around the corner from the school, and the school would be with their PTA money 6 figures every year over their budget. Because parents were putting money, they were raising the funds, and they were doing walkathons and buying the pictures and buying the baked goods and doing all the stuff and all the fundraisers. And it got to the point where now other schools were going, hey, we don't have any money. Can we have yours? And PTA money is completely different. It's not part of the school funding. But the PTA was using the money then to augment teacher salaries, because then we can get a music teacher, and then we can get an art teacher, and we can get we can help get these, these other events and books and computers and stuff for the school. I remember they used it one year to totally revamp the air conditioning and heating. It's like, well, other schools are, trying to get grants and all this other stuff from the state, who are just 2 blocks away. And it's the same people, really. They're still well-to-do, and sometimes have just one parent working and the other parent is at home, and they're all both college educated. But the outcomes in these areas are so vastly different. My son stopped going to school in Alameda, and now he's in Richmond, and what he has available to him is they don't have a swimming team, they don't have they don't have rowing, they don't have these things that he used to have at the schools over here. And then playing baseball, for instance, it's like half of these kids never picked up a baseball until high school, where back in Alameda, both of the high schools over there have excellent baseball teams with excellent coaches and kids who have been playing since they're 3-4 years old. All of them very good. And over here they're going to have maybe 1 or 2 guys who are going to picked up at Division I schools, or in Alameda you're going to have multiple guys who are picked up in Division I. Never thought of Oakland, hard to educate kids. Well, that's okay. The school things, that's not a cop-out. You got to understand that outcomes are going to be different based on the education and the money. Montclair money, they're going to have nicer stuff. East Oakland money, not as much. They're going to work hard. One school is going to be spitting out plumbers, and the other school is going to be spitting out lawyers, and another one's going to be doing oil change techs at Jiffy. It's like it's just what it's going to be. And going back to the sports thing, is Oakland's not a city that has the money, and you do have to do with some gentrification. It is. Nobody wants to live in shit. Nobody wants to. I go and I got to pick up my supplies for work and stuff every day. And I'm over by the Coliseum. I'm over off of going over by 53rd Street. Well, yeah, we need them all, but there's various levels of money and education and mobility, and you see that in the neighborhoods. You got renters versus buyers versus sellers. It's like the people up in the hills, they've got money, and they're probably generations into money, versus maybe somebody who's first or second generation American, who's just now getting started, and give them 2 or 3 generations, and they might be living in the hills too. But the fact is Oakland hates gentrification. They don't want anything that, or at least seemingly, they don't want anything to be better. Instead of helping people find homes, they're. But what about those people? All the whataboutisms is stifling everything. And if you can't sell properties, if you can't raise the taxes on properties, if you can't develop the properties, that's money that's not coming into the city. That's money that's you're having to shuffle things around to pay for your police and your fire department and your schools and everything else. Paying for a ballpark for a guy who's got the money to get the ballpark himself, all he has to do is ask his mom, apparently. Why the fuck am I going to give him $1 billion? If you've got to have priorities. Yeah, I'm sad about sports. Oakland had its sports, but don't do like Philadelphia, Baltimore to maintain them. Yeah, but there's different states with different attitudes and different laws. Again, Oakland is hamstrung by some of the laws that it wanted to pass. Again, they wanted to hold property value, property taxes at these low values. So now we have, we wanted to protect homeowners from, skyrocketing housing costs for a home that they're already paid for, but they're paying, reassessed taxes every once in a while. And, I got people that I know that have owned their houses for 20, 30 years, and they're paying a few $1,000s, versus somebody who bought a home recently and they're paying tens of thousands of dollars every year. And they're the same people, but they come from different circumstances, and their homes are similar values, but one's paying way low and one's paying way high. And so when you've got a lot of people who don't sell those houses, and you see this in places like New York, where people are sticking with their rent-controlled buildings, and then you got owners who can't even rent out or sell or do anything with the buildings because the cost doesn't match the revenue that you're going to get. I mean, it's totally a business decision, and I understand the decision. I wish there was something better that we could have done here. You got creative, stuff like tax increment financing, which was something that was being, explored at Howard Terminal. But everybody got restless. The feet dragging was a big deal. The pandemic hurt things a lot. But I also don't believe Fisher had it in him to be here in the first place. So that's kind of, again, you can't buy something that's not for sale, and you can't force somebody to do something they're not going to do. Unless we gave him a sweetheart deal where everything was free and clear, and then we probably would have lost him regardless. Same thing with the Raiders. He just wanted something big and fancy, and mostly got it covered. Hey, he's made his money. His team valuation, Mark Davis's team valuation is skyrocketed. But NFL is not the MLB, and so they've got their work cut out for him. Phil drank the anti-sports. It's not that we drank the Kool-Aid. It's just that we had other baskets to put our eggs in. I think we'd love to have kept everybody, and we'd be a perfect world where we can just say, hey, this is a great thing that we can throw money at, but only if the money was going to come back to us, and it wasn't. There was no money to come back. It would have been some good jobs and stuff, but temporarily, only a year or two while the place was getting built. But business attracts business, and that's another short-sighted thing that Oakland, I think, failed on. Was if you have something big. Oakland is unique, though, in the way that it has to deal with problems, because they boxed themselves in. Frankly, a lot of their legislation that they've had over the years to solve one problem has ended up kicking them in the ass 10, 20, 30 years down the road, because now, again, you don't have that revenue that you could have had or should have had, or things didn't work out the way you thought they were, and suddenly, you just, boxed yourself out of, millions of dollars every year. And so now, instead of saving your sports team, you're trying to put more police on put more police on the street. Meanwhile, crime is skyrocketing, and you don't have enough police. Even if you got more police, you still need more. Turnovers happening, corruption. It's craziness. Oakland needs a big kick in the ass. And I'm not saying that they're not culpable in it at all, but the leaders in the sports world didn't do their due diligence. I didn't see anybody looking out there and trying to get partners and deals, but suddenly they're doing it over in Las Vegas. I think that's pretty telling of a lot of things, but just definitely a sense of laziness in part by the people who own those teams, because we don't see any shortness of corporate sponsors and that sort of stuff with the 49ers, the Warriors, the Giants. People are coming out of the woodwork to spend their money there, and then Oakland couldn't get a decent naming rights deal to save their life. And that's part of the GAPA's deal too, which is another government agency. But where were the sports teams trying to drive this, help, make things happen? It's like, hey, we got a guy and he wants to give us $50 million to do this. And then the city's going, well, what can we do? And how can we do the whole humming and the whole thing? and then nothing happens, and they lose out on the deal, and they do that a lot. Oakland kicks itself in the ass more often than not, and yeah. But the whole point of this was, how does the sports world change? And that'll be interesting to see. Like I said, I feel like it's all falling apart. It's getting to these point of diminishing returns where you're going to be spending so much on a team, so much on payroll, and if you keep pissing off your fans who are already paying through the nose for sports packages on TV, tickets and drinks and everything else, it's like somewhere you're going to start losing the money. You can't just sit there and keep getting corporate money unless you start putting their name on stuff. And pretty soon, I think we'll get to the point where it's going to be, the Ford Lions, and it's not the Detroit Lions anymore. It's going to be the the Pacific Gas and Electric Giants. It's going to be the Google 49ers, because pretty soon it's going to get really expensive to get a new ballpark or a stadium, or buy a new team or pay for a new team when it comes up for sale. So anyways, that was the gist of the whole thing. But all right, guys, this has been an hour of my day that is gone, but it's been fun. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Oops.